But you understand, we do have one game left to play. Hey, fantastic. Every single one of you. I mean, I'm not just talking about these last 60 minutes. I'm talking about the quarterback schools, the mini camp, the off-season, the training camp, down in Austin when it was hot and you were tired, the whole bit. Everybody, you did one hell of a job. And the only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
Yo, Cowboy fans only. Yo, look, this is for the Cowboy fans. 8th Wonder Jerry's World, yeah, we crowd those stands. Dak, he gon' spin it like a fan. And you know ID coming with it, Coach Quinn got the plan, yeah. This is for the Cowboy fans. 8th Wonder Jerry's World, yeah, we crowd those stands. Dak, he gon' spin it like a fan. Yo. And you know ID coming with it, Coach Quinn got the plan. It's time to eat, off tackle or the sweep. Behind Teron Collins, ain't no problem feeding Zeke. And Dak lick his chops when he see D Lamb deep. You know 88 tradition that repeat. Coop route like Irvin, watch for Cedric in the slot. See us try to gallop to the end zone, they can't stop. Dalton up the seam, Jarwin carving up your team. Tony Pollard, X Factor, Kellen Moore with the scheme. We applying pressure with Lawrence and Gregory. QB's getting sacked, can't relax, rehab therapy. Micah got a hit list, Jalen Smith hit stick. No escaping, Leighton got him. Trayvon with the pick six, dig that. Kazi go kamikaze, the defense is solid. Find me in Dallas at Jerry's Palace among stars. Screaming Cowboy fans only, yeah. Screaming Cowboy fans only. This is for the Cowboy fans. 8th Wonder Jerry's World, yeah, we crowd those stands. Dak, he gon' spin it like a fan. And you know ID coming with it, Coach Quinn got the plan, yeah. This is for the Cowboy fans. 8th Wonder Jerry's World, yeah, we crowd those stands. Dak, he gon' spin it like a fan. And you know ID coming with it, Coach Quinn got the plan. Shout out J Tuck. Subscribe to his YouTube page, Cowboy Fans Only. CowboysFansOnly.com for all your merchandise. Cowboys stand up.
Yo, what's up, CFO gang? It's your boy J Tuck. You are now tuned into the Cowboys Fans Only channel. So if you are new, do us a huge favor. Comment, like, subscribe somewhere down there, somewhere down there, somewhere down there. And be sure to turn that notification bell to stay updated with all Dallas Cowboys news and content. Also, for all of my draft friends out there, tune in because we got more draft content coming on. We got more special guests. We are going to talk about that Senior Bowl as well, so you definitely got to lock in and stay loaded. But today, we are going to focus strictly on the Dallas Cowboys, and there's been some things happening, and I know Cowboys Nation, you're going chaotic right now. You can't relax. I already see everyone in the chat. I see my guy Mark Anthony. I see Mendoza. I see the Reaper. You guys are freaking out right now about this upcoming season. So I brought in a real special guest. She works closely with the Dallas Cowboys. She's been on this channel numerous times. She is absolutely crushing it. So we're going to talk about this Dallas Cowboys offseason and what to expect, and hopefully calm your nerves as a Cowboys fan, Cowboys Nation. So CFO fam, I would like to welcome to the channel Brianna Dix. What's going on, Brianna? Good. Glad to have you on. Like I said, you have been killing it. Like every time I turn on, social media, Instagram, Twitter, like Brianna is on top of it. Like sometimes I think that I'm tweeting news fast, but you are always like a second ahead of me.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate your work. And there was something that you did this offseason. I don't think if I ever thanked you for this, but there was this whole idea, because Cowboys fans, we like to think a lot, right?
Oh yeah.
What's going on? And this past camp, Dak Prescott was out with the apparent shoulder injury, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of lingering, and people were asking, Tuck, do you think something's up with the ankle? And I was like, well, no. And they're like, well, have you seen him run at camp? I was like, no. And I was asking people who were there, and when they were in Frisco, they're like, well, he did core drills, but apparently he went outside. And I was like, well, why would he go outside just to do core drills? So we were all panicking, trying to put our heads together, and I'm starting to panic and freak out. And then you sent a tweet, and it was like, it shows a video of Dak Prescott. He was moving on the ankle ladder. I was like, there we go. Everything's good. I'm ready to go. And we all know how that story went. Dak went into Tampa, and he lit them up. Like, he played an amazing game. No preseason, no training camp or nothing. So that tweet calmed me down, Brianna. So thanks for all your work that you did.
Well, I am glad that I could be of service. But during all off-season training camp, it was like Dak wire. Like, everybody, like, okay, how's he doing? How's he moving out there? Scrambling drills. There was a million of those. So that was
exactly.
was one of the main topics for sure.
That was the primary topic, I tell you, because I was out in Oxnard and he was doing core drills. He was moving laterally, even though he wasn't throwing. I was like, okay, but then they were like, no, he's not doing core drills. We haven't seen him moving. I was like, oh crap. Is that what they're overcompensating? But it wasn't. And that's why you have to follow Brianna so she can calm you down and keep you updated with all Dallas Cowboys news. So for the people who are trying to find you, tell them they can find you on social media.
Yes, so I am on Twitter at Dix Brianna, and then I'm also on Instagram, just Brianna Dix. So yeah, and then all of my articles are on D210.tv. So Cowboys tab, that's your girl.
There you go. Definitely give her a follow. So we're going to talk about it. Now, Brianna, we know this season didn't end like we wanted it to. Like, we should be playing. I should be having this conversation, like sitting by the pool in Los Angeles, getting ready for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But here I am in cold Kansas City. So tell me, what is your thoughts on how the Dallas Cowboys season ended?
Yeah, well, I think the offense is really what led to the team's demise in January. And I don't necessarily think that you can pinpoint one thing in particular. I think it was kind of a culmination of things, whether it was the clock mismanagement, the penalties, or, a lack of utilizing playmakers, the lack of creativity in play calling. But, you had a lack of rapport between, Dak Prescott and receivers. You had Dak struggling to read zone coverages, leading to some of that hesitancy in the pocket, which led to, the errant throws, or which led to sacks. Your offensive line couldn't block. You had a broken run game. The list could go on and on. But I think for me, one of the things that was so disheartening was the lack of creativity in the play calling, specifically, situationally, but in the red zone. Teams should not have been able to paralyze the Cowboys with the shell coverage or the cover four throughout the season. Really, the second half of the season after the Broncos game, they created that mold, that format that all these teams used. They weren't blitzing, they weren't using man coverage. They were rushing forward, they were bringing more guys on the back end. And the Cowboys should have been able to use, cover two beaters, cover four beaters, utilizing those underneath routes, and they weren't able to do that. And I think with Kellen Moore, you don't really know what the identity is. He didn't have anything that he could hang his hat on. And I think when you look at a lot of other teams, you see, they have a lot of creative concepts out of the same look, whether it's Kyle Shanahan with, the jet sweeps, and there's so many different things. But with the Cowboys, you don't have that creativity, and it's a lot of the same things, and you're seeing that predictability that we saw with, the Scott Linehan offense. And I think you saw some of that repeating this season, which was disheartening to say the least.
To say the least.
Down the stretch, yeah.
Exactly. So, when you mentioned what you saw from your perspective, what went wrong with this season, you mentioned a lot of things. Now, Cowboys fans like to just point at one thing, right? It's either Jerry's fault or Mike McCarthy's fault, or it's Dak's fault in some people. But there was a lot of things that you mentioned, right? Going back to that Broncos game, it just didn't feel right. I know statistically we had the number one quote unquote offense, But
Right.
you mentioned Dak Prescott missing throws and being out of sync with the wide receiver, not being able to get the run game involved with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott,
Yeah.
offensive line not playing up to
Oh.
par, up to standard. So it was like,
Yeah.
we were, I don't know, like it's like a filter. Like we had a filter on this season. So we looked
Yeah.
at it and thought everything is great. And I know some people had this idea, oh, Kellen Moore's just saving it for the postseason, Tuck. Relax. It's okay. And then we get to the postseason and it's the same exact issue. So
Mhm.
I want to dive into Kellen Moore because that's the burning conversation right now. I see everyone in the chat talking about it. Now, I will say this, Bree. Before the season, I was a Kellen Moore guy. Like when he was about to go to Boise, I was like, no, I want Kellen
Yeah.
Moore back. So
I think we all were.
I think so because I felt like he could transcend and maybe move forward under Mike McCarthy. But
Right.
sitting back and watching how things unfolded this season, it felt very limited at times. As you mentioned, you see a creative play here and there, a splash play. Okay, this is a touchdown to Terrence Steele, and we're all hooping and hollering. Or you run the pitch play to Zeke, and he tosses it to Tony Pollard. Okay, great call, Kellen. And then it just gets stagnant. So, as
Yeah.
we know, he applied for a few jobs, had interviews through the playoffs, after the playoffs, multiple different NFL teams. Didn't get the job. He will be back as the offensive coordinator. What is your thoughts on Kellen Moore returning for another season as a play caller for the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, I think the next season you're going to have to see some creativity. You're going to have to see this team be able to get out of this slump, get some rapport with Dak Prescott and the receivers, fix the issues in the offensive line, allocate some resources, revitalize that offensive front because, this is a team that's dictated by that offensive line. And you saw throughout the second half of the season, as Zach Martin said at the end of the season, we got smashed in the mouth. And you saw that offensive line repeatedly get beat at the point of attack that I think led to a lot of the issues in the run game. But also, you've got to find a way to utilize your playmakers. Why did Tony Pollard have 6 touches against the 49ers? Why did you have CeeDee Lamb having 3 snaps in the slot? Why did you have Dalton Schultz schemed up on a 4x1 where he's one-on-one with a corner and you have 3 receivers on the other side with Zeke motioning and Dalton Schultz is with this corner? Why did you not have Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb over on that side? Because Dak wasn't comfortable and didn't go that way.
Right.
And then it ended up being like a pitch to Zeke, and it's like little things like that it's like, why is this happening? Or why are we putting out multiple offensive linemen over and over and you're not gaining more than 3 or 4 yards, when you're telling the opposing team that, hey, this is going to be a run. How many passes did we actually see out of those jumbo formations?
Right.
We all know that the Cowboys don't have the best blocking tight ends. That's no secret.
Right.
And I think potentially that could be one of the reasons that you didn't have Tony Pollard in there as much, because I think that offensive line and their inability to block played a huge role in things that happened. And I think that might have been also why you had the quarterback draw design with 14 seconds left, because they weren't positive in the way that offensive line was going to be able to block. And you've seen down the stretch, teams didn't respect the Cowboys offensive line. They were able to generate pressure from rushing 4. So that's one of the things that I think I want to see next year is more creativity and the Cowboys being able to get out of this slump, because teams are going to continue playing this team the same way next season until they're able to get out of it. And I think, from the beginning half of the season, teams weren't necessarily, you didn't really know what you were going to get from Kellen Moore this year. But I think once teams were able to get those scouted looks and were really tuning into what they were doing, you saw what the defenses were able to do in the second half of the season. So, and if that means Mike McCarthy jumping in the room, giving some pointers, helping Kellen Moore, you've got to get voices in there to get the offense out of this slump, because really that's what we all thought, I think the strength of this team was going to be coming out of training camp was the offense. We were all worried about the defense.
Exactly.
You've got Dan Quinn coming in. You've got a new defensive line coach. You've got all these new bodies in there. What is the defense going to look like? And then they ended up being the strength that carried this team for the majority of the season.
Yeah. And that's the concerning part. It's like we finally got the defense we've been wanting in Dallas.
Exactly.
And then the offense breaks it. Yeah, then the offense breaks it. We're sitting there like, are you kidding me? And I think that was the frustrating part. And you mentioned Mike McCarthy stepping in. I guess he had a comment that even if Kellen had gotten another job, he wants the offensive coordinator to be in charge of the play calling. And so from a Cowboys fan's perspective, when you're thinking about, we wanted Mike, or some people wanted Mike McCarthy, which I thought he was a decent hire, but you think about play calling, West Coast offense, a quarterback guy, but we just haven't seen that in Dallas. He's pretty much being hands off with the approach, because I was saying,
no, 100%.
The way I see things, Bree, I never see Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott talking on the sideline. You know, like, where's that relationship with the head coach and your starting quarterback? I just don't see it. It's with Dak and Kellen. And so that concerns me, because you mentioned the Linehan tree, right? You have Linehan, you have Jason Garrett, you have Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore has his DNA in Dak Prescott. We just hired a wide receiver, our coach, that has Kellen Moore DNA. And so you mentioned not getting our stars involved in these different things we've seen for so long. I mean, even going back to Terrell Owens, it's frustrating and also concerning from a Cowboys fan point of view, because we don't know, is it really going to get better? I just don't see Kellen Moore waking up today and be like, you know what? I'm going to involve the run game now. You know, I could have been, I just didn't want to. I'm going to get Tony Pollard involved and have him play wide receiver and get him 15 touches a game. I just don't see that changing. He is who he is. And I personally just don't think the offense can move forward in the right direction we're trying to go with this mentality of thinking. Because like you said, teams sit back and figure it out. Week 7 and set and continue to play that same type of defensive shell coverage, and it caused issues. I mean, of course, we had a few breakthroughs versus Washington, the Eagles. All right, we'll toss that to the side. But the Cardinals game, the Raiders game, like the list goes on and on versus quality opponents, we saw no adjustments. So on a level of 1 to 10, what is your confidence this offense can get to where we think it should be, with Kellen Moore still remaining in-house for what may be another season?
I would say I'm probably middle of the pack. I'm probably 5.
5. Yo.
And I think
you're supposed to talk us off the cliff. Yes, give us a 5.
Sorry, I'm not. After what I saw the second half of the season, I'm not really positive at this point. But I think one of the exciting things that people can be excited about is just that continuity that you do have with Dak, that you do have with Kellen, and a lot of people coming in. I mean, you're going to have a new wide receivers coach. You know, Adam Henry's contract expires. You bring in Robert Prince, who's worked with Kellen Moore at Boise and with the Lions. So you have that other voice in there that's a Kellen Moore guy. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, we all say the continuity between Kellen and Dak and about building. And I mean, how many times have the coaches beat over the head that this is, you know, a quarterback friendly system? They want to build everything around Dak, make things easier for him. But at the same time, I mean, they didn't put him in a position to have success this season. I mean, you know, Dak is a guy that thrives in a play action system. I mean, you look at his passer rating when you have a balanced attack, when you have a decent run game. And I mean, it's night and day when you don't have a run game. I mean, he's not that guy that's going to be an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady where you have 35 plus pass. I mean, you had it in the Tampa Bay game, but that was kind of an aberration. You know, I mean, he's not going to be that guy. Right. And he was forced to be that guy during the second half of the season, and we saw what the outcome was.
Yep.
So, I mean, they've got to find a way next season to get continuity up front, to get that run game going, and to bolster things up and to make some changes. And I think that's where the priority needs to be in this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. So I got some 2s in the chat. I got 5. Arsenio has 7. Steve has an 8+ confidence level.
Well, I'm liking the optimism.
There you go. There you go, Steve. Yeah, talk us off the ledge.
8, you know?
Talk us off the ledge, Steve. Let's see here. So 8+, 2. So you mentioned the offensive line. Let me ask you this question, Bree. Do you think it's from a talent issue when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, or do you think we just never had the proper continuity? Because we had Zach Martin out week 1. You had Lyle with the suspension. Then you switched from Connor Williams to Connor McGovern. Then you went back to Connor Williams. And then you had Tyron Smith out. So do you think that was the reason for the offensive line woes? Or is it that we just need to get better up front from a talent perspective?
I think I mean, it might sound a little cliche, but I think it's a little bit of both because, I mean, you had the 5 guys that were the presumed starters heading into the season. They played against the 49ers, and we saw what the production was. Dak was harassed in the pocket.
They all got whooped.
Consistently beat. They all got whooped. So I don't think you can necessarily say that, oh, it's because of a lack of talent. I mean, but I think also this coaching staff, I think there was a lot of confusion. And I think that played into the production that you saw during the course of the season. I mean, even at the beginning, at the outset, during training camp, you had Connor Williams taking snap at center, which, you know, once again played into they weren't really set on Tyler Biotish. But he, you know, Connor Williams struggled with the shotgun snaps. Well, then you had going into the season, you had Connor McGovern taking reps at center. And then, you know, eventually neither one of those really stepped up. So you had Tyler Biotish starting. But then you also had, you know, them rotating guys at, you know, the tackle spots with Ty and Secchi. You had Terrence Steele rotating. And so you had all these moving parts.
Right.
And I think, you know, they weren't able to get that continuity because they thought Ty and Secchi was better at, you know, the pass blocking snaps. So they wanted him in there. But it's just like, I mean, this isn't a preseason game. Like, why are we rotating guys from series to series? Like, you want to throw somebody in there, like have one guy maybe first half, another guy second half, but like, what are we doing?
Right.
You know, and I think that was kind of just the whole, when you looked at the offensive line, it was like, and I mean, I can't even imagine what that would be like for Dak, what that would be like for Zeke lining up in the backfield. You know, who are your guys? And I think you saw that this team, you've got to have this strength in the interior because I think, you know, when you didn't have that continuity at left guard. I mean, you're set with Zach Martin at right guard. But, you know, when you've got stellar play around Tyler Biotish, I think that really impacts him. But I think the struggles they had at left guard really took a toll on Tyler Biotish at center.
Yeah, I personally feel like Tyler struggled this season, and I don't know why Cowboys fans really turned a blind eye to it. Maybe because he was up there in the Pro Bowl voting for a little bit, but that's just because his name was first with the B's, y'all. But I agree with Professor O just said. That's on Philbin as the offensive line coach. So if we are going to move on from somebody, I feel like we do need to make an adjustment to offensive line coach because
100%.
I think it was the Raiders game where they had the substitution when they were rotating, and Zach Martin came out and spoke on the post game and said, well, we all want to get an opportunity to play. I'm like, is this the Mavericks or is this the Cowboys? Like, you all don't get an opportunity to play with the offensive line. You find your 5 guys and you roll with it and you just make your bed. You can't say, you know what, I'm going to get Terrence Steele 4 series, then we're going to sub him out and put it, like you said, it creates a lot of, just
they didn't know who their 5 guys were.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know, and it's different. People move different ways, and so it was just a huge issue. So we'll probably talk about the draft here in a second, but I think that the offensive line is the main point of improvement that we need to focus on getting better for the 2022 season. So we mentioned Kellen Moore. We brought in a new wide receiver coach today in Robert Prince. The conversation that kind of circled on social media is that the Cowboys could possibly be moving on from Amari Cooper. I think they save $16 million if they trade him, 21 or so if they cut him. What is your thoughts on how the Cowboys view Amari Cooper moving forward, especially in this Kellen Moore system over superstar scheme?
Right. When I think a lot of it, you have to gauge. I mean, they're paying him for number 1 wide receiver money, but they're not utilizing him as a number 1 wide receiver.
And like I said, I will gladly take it. If you want to give me that type of money and only throw me 4 targets, okay, cool. Thanks for the gift.
Right. But I think, a lot of it you have to say, okay, well, has he worn out his welcome in Dallas? I mean, I think we all know the route running capability that he has, but I think, when you look at it from the front office standpoint, I mean, you've seen the frustration from Jerry Jones in talking about Amari's vaccination status when he caught COVID. You heard the frustration when Amari Cooper made the comments about the lack of communication between everybody on the offense, not just the receivers and the quarterback, but your running backs. I mean, everything. And then what was Jerry Jones's response on 105.3? He took about a minute to talk about how the route running needs to be more crisp. So I think you're seeing the writing on the wall there. But I mean, you've got Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson as free agents. So I mean, if you're going to cut Amari Cooper, then you have to have a deal on the table for those guys, because I mean, Amari, like, he'll get the $20 million is fully guaranteed, 5 days after the league year begins, but they could save, like you said, $16 million by cutting him. But I think you have to gauge, okay, do you want Amari Cooper in there with CeeDee Lamb, or do you go with Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson in addition to CeeDee Lamb? What do they want for the future is what they have to gauge at this point.
Yeah, and it's a tough decision when it comes to Amari Cooper. Me personally, I'm not getting rid of Amari Cooper, especially with the injury coming with Michael Gallup. Like, I just feel like, granted, I like what Cedric Wilson's able to do, but as a third wide receiver, I don't think he can be a second wide receiver, or even a primary. I just don't think that's his niche. But if you move on from Amari Cooper, that means CeeDee now becomes your one, and you have to hope that those other guys really emerge and take a leap forward and stay healthy, because it's like we go right back to the same situation we were in before we got Amari Cooper, right? We moved on from Dez Bryant and tried this wide receiver by committee and had Allen Hurns and you had Cole Beasley, and it flopped, and you gave up a first-round draft pick for Amari Cooper. And when you mentioned the frustrations, I know the vaccination thing and that he's kind of being a little vocal. Now, Amari's not too vocal. He's not going to be as disruptive, but Amari Cooper he's not throwing me the damn ball type wide receiver, but he's more of a calm, like, hey, I appreciate more opportunities. So, but he spoke out about it. But I feel like when it comes to Amari Cooper, he's a little bit more delicate. And that was kind of the situation when he was in Oakland. Like, you can't just be harping on Amari Cooper or he might fold a little bit. And I feel like if the Cowboys press on him too much, he might just say, you know what, I'm cool. Like, you saw him kind of loafing on a few plays, loafing on a few routes, because he was only getting 4 targets a game. So, like, I just, I feel like the Cowboys really need to work on that relationship. And maybe this new wide receiver coach could spark it. But if you move on from Amari Cooper, you have to have a game plan. And I personally don't trust it. You tell me you're going to run through with CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Cedric Wilson, and Simi Fioco and Malik Turner. Okay, I'm not, I'm just not too sold on that approach. And so we'll see, but it's something we definitely got to keep our eyes out on, because they had that out and that contract strategically placed there. And I've been saying this, Bree, I feel like if the Cowboys knew they were getting CeeDee Lamb in the draft, they wouldn't have signed Amari Cooper to the amount that they did. But it's just like, okay, you sign Amari Cooper and then you got a blessing of CeeDee Lamb. It's like, okay, how do you go about that? But we'll see. So it's definitely going to be an interesting offseason. Let's get over to the side of the ball that actually showed up this season for a little bit for a change. Surprisingly, I can't believe I'm actually saying that. Like, there's a point throughout the season where it's like, I was feeling confident in the defense. Like, all right, offense got a 3 and out, whatever. Defense will get it back. Like, as a Cowboy fan, I can't remember the last time I was thinking like that. But Dan Quinn is returning. Let me know, what is your thoughts on Dan Quinn and what does he bring back to this Dallas Cowboys team, and specifically this defense?
I think with Dan Quinn, I don't think there's enough that you can say about the job that he did this season or the complete turnaround. I mean, he inherited a team that surrendered the most points in franchise history. Mm-hmm. And then in a year later, they led the league in takeaways and were 7th in league in points allowed per game. Mm-hmm. So, but not only that, but just his hands-on approach, his attention to detail, and just the way that he's able to maximize talent. Once they got back Randy Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence and Neville Gallimore, I mean, he was using 5 guys at the line of scrimmage, getting those one-on-one pass rush situations, blitzing a guy, pass rush stunts. I mean, just in an incredible front. But really the thing I love about Dan Quinn, and kind of in contrast to Kellen Moore, and I find it hilarious, but the whole front half of the season, everybody was just glowing about Kellen Moore and his ability to adapt to what defenses were giving the Cowboys. But really, I think that's kind of become the storyline for Dan Quinn throughout the season, being able to adjust to what offenses were doing. And, just the way that he utilized Micah Parsons and was able to get the most out of him. And in training camp, this dude lined up everywhere.
Everywhere.
I mean, every day you were like,
I remember being out there in Oxnard. I was
be?
like, my goodness, what is this?
I mean, he was on the edge. He was over the center. He was off the ball. He was, chasing runners to the flat. You're like, what is going on? But he never looked out of position. He never looked confused. He was ready as a rookie. And Dan Quinn and George Edwards from that point on said, okay, we are going to build the defense around his versatility. We're going to build pressure packages around his versatility. And he is going to be the foundation for this defense. And you've seen his speed, the initial quickness. You've seen the sideline to sideline range. You've seen all of these things that has kind of helped to turn this defense around, and really just the way that he works with individual players. And with a guy like Micah, he's even said, I'm very playful, I'm energetic, and that can sometimes come across as being immature. But I think the way that Dan Quinn, with the attention to detail, those one-on-one meetings with his hand placement, his footwork, the technique, really honing in on individual things, has kind of kept Micah focused and helped him see what he needed to improve on from game to game. This guy learned blitz packages and pass rush stunts at both D end and linebacker every week.
Right.
As a rookie, that's insane. But also just a guy like Randy Gregory, who's pretty much predominantly lined up on the edge, or a guy like DeMarcus Lawrence, and Dan Quinn's moving him inside. And I even talked with Randy Gregory about it, if he did that at Nebraska, did he ever move inside? And he was like, to be honest, in the past, I didn't really enjoy that. I'd done it occasionally, but it wasn't something that I was really fond of. But with a guy like Dan Quinn, he's like, he tells us what to do and we do it because we trust him and we know that the system's going to work. And we know that he's going to put us in the best position to have success. And I think that's the embodiment of a coach that's going to make a difference. And you've seen the reaction from players on social media when it was announced that he would return.
Exactly.
So I think the sky's the limit for what this team's going to be able to do next season with Dan Quinn back.
Yeah, and the way you spoke about Dan Quinn, the way the players speak about it, it's night and day from the defensive side of the ball to the offensive side of the ball, right? You mentioned maximizing the players' talents. I said, as great as of a talent that Micah Parsons is, right? He's a lion. We all know he's a lion. Dan Quinn is the lion tamer, and I feel like Micah Parsons does not have the season that he has if we still had Mike Nolan as a defensive coordinator, right? Dan Quinn knew how to unlock Micah's potential, to move him to defensive end, to move him back to linebacker, to have him move in different positions over the field. You mentioned Randy Gregory, Trayvon Diggs, let him play a little bit off coverage. He knows what his players like, and he's even mentioned it numerous times. Sometimes they'll be like, nah, we don't like that. He'll be like, all right, we'll scrap it. What do you guys like? And it's more of a collaborative effort. I just don't feel like that's the case on the offensive side of the ball. I feel like Amari Cooper says, I don't like that. Here's how we can beat the cover two. They're like, all right, well, we're going to run this regardless. And so maybe Dan Quinn needs to get locked into a room with Kellen Moore, send him out somewhere, and y'all really talk about what you're doing on the defensive side of the ball and the way you can kind of have that same impact on the offensive side of the ball. Because those who play sports, when your coach calls your favorite play, you're like, all right, let's run it. Got it. We're good. Let's go. And when your coach calls a play, you're just like, man, this ain't about to work. And you're just jogging, running through the routes. Your quarterback throws it a little bit low because you don't believe in the system or the call. I feel like defensively, they believe in Dan Quinn and what he was calling. And if they were just able to play off their natural habits and their natural talents, and that's why you saw this defense excel like they did. So I was ecstatic that Dan Quinn came back. Honestly, I didn't think it was going to happen. But, it sounds like he likes being in Dallas. And as you mentioned, he just likes to teach. When you're a head coach, you got so many different things. Well, supposedly, Mike McCarthy, wink, wink. You got so many things that you have to do and deal with. Dan Quinn probably didn't want that, right? He just wants to kind of coach his guys, coach his defense, and really focus on that. So that thus far was the biggest offensive signing, is getting Dan Quinn back in house, because I felt like if we didn't, what was going to happen? I was seeing some other names circulate and just like, we can get Mike Zimmer in house. I'm just, So I like that we're able to get Dan Quinn back. So on the defensive side of the ball, as great as Dan Quinn was, a lot of those guys were on one-year deals. And it's time to get their money, Bree. So what is your thoughts? Who are the 5 most important free agents that the Dallas Cowboys must sign this offseason? Like, no negotiation, like, all right, this is get it done. We need you on the roster for this upcoming season.
Well, I would say specifically on defense, I would say the top would be Randy Gregory and Jaron Kearse. Now, I think a lot of what ends up happening with Randy Gregory is going to be predicated on what happens with DeMarcus Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is he going to be a salary cap casualty? I mean, you know, he's set to make $27 million. Now, by cutting him, they can save $11 million. But I mean, you're not going to be able to sign DeMarcus Lawrence and give him $27 million, but then also sign Randy Gregory to a multi-year extension. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not going to be able to have both those guys. Now, if DeMarcus Lawrence is willing to take a pay cut, well, then you're going to be able to allocate those resources and pay Randy Gregory. But, you know, I think that's going to kind of dictate that situation. But then you had a guy like
what's your thoughts? What do you think's going to happen with DeMarcus Lawrence? Because that was another name for cap casualties that was mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see him take a pay cut because, you know, I mean, despite the sack numbers, I mean, this is a guy that anchors this defensive line and creates opportunities for other players, you know, takes on double teams and does a lot of things that I think go under the radar. And so I would like to see him stick around, but I mean, it depends on if you're able to kind of get all these guys in here. And I mean, we all know what an amazing story Randy Gregory has and how Jerry Jones has stood by him. And I mean, he's had the best year that he's had as a Cowboy this season, you know, went through his first full offseason since his rookie season and was able to have an impact when, you know, he was on the field when he wasn't injured. Mm-hmm. So I would like to see both, but I mean, I think it'll just see and time will tell what that situation has. But I just loved the impact that Jaron Kearse had, and I think he brought that physicality that this defense has really lacked for several years. You know, that killer box safety that this team has needed, and just the hard hits. I mean, God, he was an exciting player to watch and a difference maker. Because, you know, I mean, a lot of times with free agency, the Cowboys, you know, they go to the Dollar Tree, you know. I mean, they don't spend a lot of money in free agency. I mean, we all know that about the Cowboys, but I think, you know, they were able to pick up some guys, and Dan Quinn knew the kind of players that he wanted in his system that were tailor fit to impact and to make a difference. And Jaron Kearse was certainly one of those players. So I would love to see both those guys on the field next year. And I think having Dan Quinn back is certainly going to be a draw for any defensive player to want to play for the Cowboys again.
Yeah, it definitely increases our chances. Yes. And you mentioned, like, we do like to shop at the Dollar Tree and kind of get these budget guys. And here's my concern with that. I felt like since it worked so great this past season, Stephen Jones is going to sit back and say, you know what? I can find you another Jaron Kearse. I can get you another Malik Hooker. Oh, Randy Gregory, I can find you one of those for a whole lot cheaper. And we're going to roll that dice and crap out, which is unfortunate because I felt like as great as Dan Quinn is, he did have some talent finally. The team was a lot faster defensively, like they just played a lot different. But sometimes the people upstairs and the business can get in the way of actually putting the proper talent on the field. So hopefully that's not the case. I do trust Will McClay. I do not trust Stephen and Jerry Jones. So hopefully that is not the case. They don't turn into the Pawn Stars and try to get these one-year deal guys again to replace our previous one-year deal guys. I feel like there's a lot of players that earn their value and they earn their check. Moving forward, hopefully we can get that ink signed. Someone just asked, okay, do you see Micah as our new edge rusher? And that might allow the Cowboys to maybe move on from DeMarcus Lawrence moving forward, plug in maybe a Chauncey Golston and get your real high pressure volume coming from Micah.
I do not see Micah as a full-time edge. And even though we all see his production from a pass rush standpoint, but I mean, this team has said over and over that, I mean, Micah does so many things well, and he's a guy that you can't limit to one thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're playing a team that has dynamic receiving running backs or pass catching tight ends, I mean, you need a guy like Micah, his speed, to outpace guys to the perimeter and make tackles. You know, I mean, you need that speed, you need his vision back there. So, I mean, yeah, we all see what he's able to do on third down in those pass rushing situations. The sack production, when he has a lot less pass rush snaps than a lot of people in the league. Mm-hmm. But I think if you put him as a full-time D end, you're limiting what all he's able to do. I mean, you're talking about a guy that can rush from over the center, from edge, can line up on and off the ball at all three positions at linebacker.
Right. Cover down the field and make plays.
I don't think you want to limit him to just one thing because, sure, yeah, then he would have a much higher sack production and could probably win something like a defensive player of the year, which I think
he should have got it this year, honestly.
He played to that level, but because he wasn't necessarily just a linebacker having those tackles or just as a defensive end having that sack production, that kind of takes away from him getting that accolade. But at the same time, he has that production at both. Heck, they lined him up at corner against King Galladay, and you see what he was able to do.
Right.
Or the play he made against Chase Edmonds. Across the field, and he's running and makes the tackle at the goal line to prevent getting the touchdown. These are the type of things that Mike is able to do. So as much as we all love seeing him as a defensive end, we love seeing the closing speed, we love seeing the quarterbacks go to the ground, and it's like a flash. You don't even stink and see him before the guys are out there stance and pass. Yeah, but at the same time, there's so many different things he can do, and you want to fully weaponize all the things that he's able to do, and that's something that Dan Quinn has said over and over. So I don't see him ever being just a full-time DN.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I was probably one of the conductors of the Micah defensive end train throughout the season because I just felt like the production we were getting from the edge rush was a lot more better than we were getting from the linebackers. But Keanu Neal, that project really didn't work out. We shift Jalen Smith off. We kind of had LVE. He had a decent season, but not the greatest. So our linebacker production was drastically decreased, especially when Jabril Cox went down with the injury. So it's like, all right, I changed my mind a little bit. You can move Micah back to linebacker. But I feel like if you're able to get some rookies who we'll probably talk about here soon and get more depth at the linebacker position, the pass rush volume with Micah will increase. I just felt like, just like you said, he's a weapon, he's a chess piece for Dan Quinn to move around in different positions, which makes him hard to scheme for. So I'm off the full-time defensive end, but throughout the season, I was like, I just need pressure. I just need pressure, especially when DeMarcus Lawrence was out for a little bit. Let's see here.
Well, and that's what makes him such a nightmare for offensive coordinators. They have no idea where he's coming. If you have him as a full-time DN, you're taking away some of that unknown element,
right? Where
on any given play he can come from anywhere.
Exactly.
The kind of game wrecking impact that he has, and you've seen that over and over. The fact that he was compared to Lawrence Taylor in his rookie season says it all.
Right.
The ability to just take over a game. So if you make him just a full-time DN, you're taking some of that away.
Right. Highly competitive, as we saw in the Pro Bowl, right?
A lot
of people compare him to Lawrence Taylor. Yeah, I was actually like, I know people have been complaining about the Pro Bowl. They want more physicality, even though the game is what it is. It's just the entertainment to see your favorite players out on the field at the same time. That's just what it is. But it's kind of cool to see Micah just always competing, even the Madden game, the foot race versus Tyreek Hill and Nick Chubb. He just wants to win. Even at the Pro Bowl yesterday, he was upset they lost. He was sitting on the bench I can't, I like that. And I feel like it was very contagious, not only for our defense, but just for our team. And you mentioned something earlier, identity, Bree. That is what the Dallas Cowboys need. We have nothing we can lean on. The 49ers, if things hit the fan, the run game. All right, we're just going to run it and that's what we're going to lean on. And we're just going to go from there. But the Cowboys is we let the defense kind of dictate who we're going to be. We might be a passing team one game versus Tampa, and then we play the Chargers. Now we're a run team. It's just too much. We really just never had that identity or something we can lean on. So hopefully the Cowboys can really get back to, if you want to be an aerial attack, and that's where I am. If you want to air the ball out 40 times with Dak Prescott, okay, I'm with that. Give it to Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. Give them to your weapons. If Dalton Schultz and Cedric Wilson, great pieces, but teams aren't fearful of them beating them, especially in the playoffs. Get your playmakers involved if that's what you want to be. If you want to be a run-based team, then get Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard the ball, get them out in space and let them create. But you just never know. It's kind of a coin flip what we're going to do this series, and let's hope for the best.
Well, and I can't even how many times you had the runs up the middle for no gains, and it was okay, well, why are we not targeting the edges? And over and over, both Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore were like, well, it's a secondary auxiliary category. You know, those are harder to come. And it's like, okay, well, at some point, if running it up the middle isn't working,
Right.
then you're going to have to get guys in space. You're going to have to use Tony Pollard's explosiveness. Heck, get CeeDee Lamb out of the backfield.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, he's elusive. He evades guys. He's going to be able to get yards after catch, you know, and I think you saw it each time with Tony's kick returns. I mean, he was about a second away from breaking a big run. I mean, every time. I mean,
Right.
that's just the speed and explosiveness that he has. But he's, I think, one of the most underutilized and underappreciated guys on this team. And they have got to find a way to get him involved next season, whether it's, you know, jet sweeps or whatever you want to do, but just get him the ball, because he makes a difference. And I think that was a shame to not see that happen. But I think that goes back to one of the things that, I mean, you know, coaching matters, and the ability to utilize the guys that you have on your roster. I mean, you've seen, I mean, look at the way that Kyle Shanahan utilizes Deebo Samuel.
I know,
look at
and
way
that's
all
the
these
frustrating
teams
part.
utilize the guys that they I mean, heck, look at the way the Falcons used Cordero Patterson.
Right. And that's the frustrating part. And I will not spend another summer on this channel making a how we can utilize Tony Pollard more video. I just said everything I needed to say. I have about 3 videos with that same concept. And I think that's the frustrating part. We can sit back from a fan perspective and be like, all right, how about the Cowboys just go tempo? You're more efficient when you play tempo offensively. They come out, they play tempo. Oh, it works. How about you run to the edges a little bit more, get Tony Pollard involved? You do it, okay, it works. How about you use the play action a little bit more and get Dak moving? It works. And then we all give it, okay,
Or
40 burger.
pull guys, you know, use the
pull
counter
guys. Pull
use
Connor
guys
Williams.
to-
Pull, you know, and then they do it, it works. And then the next game, when you're playing a team like the Cardinals, this is like, where did it go? Like, why did you get out of what was working for you? And that's the frustrating part when it comes to offense. Let's see. You are right, Tuck. We needed identity when it got real. We had plenty of weapons on the offense, but they have to create opportunities for their stars. Yeah, I agree. And that's the frustrating part. Whether it was Terrell Owens, whether it's Des Bryant, now it's Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, it's just this trend. And there's one kind of common denominator. It's this Linehan tree and that way of thinking. So it's kind of unfortunate. So let me ask you this, Bree, before I let you go. One thing to get the Cowboys back on track, so we're playing in Super Bowl Sunday, what's the one thing that you would change immediately in Dallas?
I think you've got to figure out this offensive line. I mean, if you had me rank the offensive line and the quarterback, receivers, running backs, I mean, that offensive line would be first on my list of things that you need to change. So to me, you need to make a change at the offensive line coach. Now, I think the longer this goes out, the less enthused we are that something's going to happen. But I mean, I think the offensive line positional coach is one of the most underrated in football. I mean, you look at the way that the Cowboys offense operated under Bill Callahan, or a lack thereof under Paul Alexander that was fired, you know, midway through the season. But I mean, in Zach Martin would, I mean, just ask him about how much he developed under Harry Hiestand at Notre Dame. You know, I mean, this is an offensive line that was at one point the best in the NFL. You know, this was a line that people feared, and you no longer have that. I mean, people are like openly mocking this offensive line now.
Right.
You had Nick Bosa coming on and laughing about how, you know, Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins are beatable, you know, and there's evidence on tape. And I mean, you see what they were able to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got to figure out a way to get some continuity and to protect Dak and also open up holes for this run game next season. So that's the first change that I would want to see and fix that line, get some guys in the draft, you know, bolster that unit and vitalize it for the 2022 season.
Get better than trenches. My guy, Professor O, I have to ask you this question because he believes the one thing he would change is Rowdy. He believes that Rowdy, the mascot, is a curse. And so he wants to know your thoughts about Rowdy, and because he believes he has his whole campaign online about getting rid of Rowdy because Rowdy's the curse. Well, he's not the curse. But what's your thoughts on Rowdy the mascot?
So I think that's about like when Jerry Jones was asked about if he's going to put curtains up at AT&T Stadium, and he basically said, hell no, that's about 10,000th on my list of worries. That's about how I would feel about
Rowdy. See, Professor.
But I actually, when I was an intern for the Cowboys in 2016, I was actually his handler for a lot of games. Like I would follow around with him. I would go and sit in like the trumpet player, Freddie Jones. I would sit in his green room, but I was with Rowdy a lot and literally like the best dude.
See, there you go, Matt.
He is not the problem.
Stop being a hater, Matt. My one issue with Rowdy is when I went to the 2020 Pro Bowl when it was Orlando. My son was ready to go, and they had this mascot game, and Rowdy was a no-show. So he was so upset and hurt that Rowdy wasn't at the mascot game, and so he kind of been upset about Rowdy. Now look, Saturday, Rowdy's out there playing football and doing all that stuff, and he's like, "See, there's Rowdy." And I was like, "It's all right, man. He's probably busy." So he said Rowdy became the mascot in 1996. No Super Bowl wins since him. I don't think that's the case. I feel like Rowdy was there before, Matt. I'll have to look that up.
Well, and two, like there's multiple people that play Rowdy because you can't you'll have a lot of appearances that he has to be at on a single day, and he can't make all of them. So you have multiple guys that play him.
So maybe it's the people who've been playing
Rowdy. You have like a Rowdy 1, a Rowdy 2, and a Rowdy 3.
Right.
So I mean they're at different locations, but no, I personally love the whole Rowdy thing.
Yeah, he's just a hater. It's not Rowdy. It's not Rowdy. Rowdy is the least of our concerns,
that's the least
right?
of the Cowboys
if that's the reason why we're not winning. Like this coaching staff and this organization. Now you mentioned the draft, Bree. Offensive line. Now let's say, for instance, you do get, let's say, a tight end or a wide receiver or a linebacker that falls to you. Are you open to the conversation of drafting them, or are you just strictly offensive line? Because I know it's kind of every draft season is always this civil war amongst Cowboys fans. Like, nope, Tuck, offensive line. We got to go offensive line first. But do you feel like there's an opportunity that we should maybe be interested if, a Jameson Williams, the wide receiver out of Alabama, it's a high caliber kind of CeeDee Lamb falls into your lap? Do you take that and then maybe look for offensive line later?
I mean, I prefer an offensive lineman, but I think at that point you have to go with the best player available. So I mean, if you have a guy like Nakobe Dean who's sitting there that can go in and complement Micah Parsons, and you can have a lethal linebacker tandem, then I say go for it. But there's also a ton of offensive linemen that are great players that will be at the top of the list. So, I mean, if you've got one of those guys there, I think they need to prioritize an offensive lineman finally.
Yeah.
In the top draft and get that position solidified. Because, I mean, Tyron Smith hasn't played a full season since 2015. I mean, he's aging, he's injury prone. You need to find a successor at tackle.
So would you specifically at that 24 spot look for guard per se, left guard, or would you maybe look for your future left tackle?
I mean, I think you could go really either way. Okay. I mean, I think you've got a guy like the center out of Iowa, Tyler Lindenbaum, or you've got a guy like Kenyon Green. I mean, I think you have a lot of options that the Cowboys could pick, and I think really any of them you could plug in and play. I don't really have a specific position. I just think that overall you
position
need to
flex
that unit.
Yeah, because I know when it comes to position flex, there's this whole conversation of possibly moving Lyle Collins back to left guard and go with Tim Still at right tackle. And I'm all for that, Cowboys Nation. I just said I didn't want to just do that the last week in playoffs, going to the playoffs, and just like, okay, we're going to make a switch because we made too many switches as it was. But now, a full off season, you tell me, okay, we're going to move Lyle back to guard. Let's go for it. I mean, get Connor McGovern out there and Connor Williams snapping the ball. Like, figure it out. That's where I'm at right now, bro. I don't care how it's done. Just get it done because I'm tired. You were out there for numerous games. So was I. You're just like exhausted the way the season ends. But hopefully, Cowboys Nation, things will be okay.
Yeah.
One last question.
I rooted for putting Collins at left guard, because if you move him into left guard, well, then that opens up spot for Terrence Steele at right tackle.
Right tackle.
So, when you've got an impending free agent, Connor Williams, having Collins move into left guard, I think would be a great move. Now, I mean, we thought about that over and over, moving Collins to left guard, but it never ended up happening.
Right.
So,
which I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't do it, because they'd probably been more of a natural fit. But hey, maybe that goes back to coaching. Now, one last thing about this 2022 season, there's going to be this dark cloud. So when you're doing these pregame and postgame interviews, this dark cloud is going to be shadowing this entire season. And that dark cloud is Sean Payton. What's your thoughts on this whole Sean Payton situation looming over the Dallas Cowboys? 'Cause I already see fans are like, we just got to get ready for 2023. After this season, we're going to get Sean Payton.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that is 100% correct. And I think a lot of what happens during this season, it's going to be compared to Sean Payton. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think that Mike McCarthy is going to be under immense pressure this season, because not only do you have Sean Payton that's out there, and whether he does a TV booth gig or whatever, said he kind of wants to take a step back for a year or 2 years or whatever it is. But you're going to have not only that, but you've also got Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore coming back. And there's been a lot of talk that you could potentially have Dan Quinn, be the successor one day, be the head coach for the Cowboys. So you've also got that. So this season, I think you're going to see a lot of pressure. But I mean, then again, I don't really think that Mike McCarthy really cares one way or the other. And I don't think he gets really impacted by the pressure. Right. So one way or another, I don't really think he cares personally. But I mean, I think overall, yes, he will certainly be under pressure and be on the hot seat this season. And I mean, yes, like I would take Mike McCarthy over a lot of the names that were in that coaching
Urban Meyer,
whether it be Nathaniel Hackett or a Matt Eberflus or a Josh McDaniels. I mean, how many times are we going to be duped by Patriots, a Bill Belichick, guy? I mean, how many times is that going to end not in the best of light for people to actually realize that that's not exactly the best route to go? Mm-hmm. But I think when you have a name like Sean Payton that comes into the coaching circuit, that changes things.
Right. It's a spark plug.
Right.
Cowboys
and I mean,
fans will be
excited. You also have the relationship he's had with Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
So.
And he dropped a great movie. If you haven't seen the movie, it's a fun movie. I'm an Adam Sandler fan, so I actually like the movie. So Adam Sandler is like one of my...
It literally has Kevin James. Like, what is happening? Like, in what world does he mirror or look like Sean?
I don't know.
Now, I will say, if you have not seen American Underdog, the movie on Kurt Warner...
I need to see that. Maybe I'll watch that.
That was amazing.
I might watch that. I actually just stumbled into the Sean Payton movie. I was like, no, it's not as bad as I thought. So, they actually mentioned like his son in the movie, because it's about him when he had the suspension. It's like, why don't you just come to play in Dallas or coach in Dallas? And he was like, Dallas already has a coach. I'm like, we didn't. You could have came, Sean, if that was the case. It's based on a true story. So, I've been kind of on the fence about Sean Payton versus Mike McCarthy. I just don't feel like it's a huge leap, because it ultimately comes down to Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones going to let Sean Payton be the Sean Payton in New Orleans. Is he going to have full control, football operations? I don't think that's the case. And so if you're going to bring in Sean Payton but say Kellen Moore has to stay the offensive coordinator, we're in the same situation, just a different name. So, it remains to be unseen. But I'm pulling for Mike McCarthy because, like I said, I want to get it done now. But it feels like the Dallas Cowboys just aren't pushing their chips in. And I feel like that's the frustration you're seeing right now.
Doesn't seem like there's a lot of urgency.
Yeah, there's no urgency.
Had the undisciplined play, but I mean they had the talent, and I don't think you can say that this team, that we had too high of expectations. I mean, this was a talented roster.
Right.
They underperformed, but I mean, you stack this team up against any team in the NFL, and they should be one of the best.
Right.
So you should have had a long postseason run this year. I mean, this is the best Cowboys team we've seen in decades. You had the defensive element there. You had all these pieces that this team has lacked, and they weren't able to get the job done.
Yep, exactly. And that's the frustrating part. And then you hear Jerry Jones and Steven be vocal about it, but we're not seeing no changes. Same coordinators coming back. We have a new wide receiver coach. Okay, whoop. You brought in a new kicker who's still a little spotty at times. So it's like, what's the big change? You were so frustrated you made no big changes, but that's what we have to wait and see. Bree, thank you again for coming on. I definitely appreciate you. Once again, let everyone in the chat know where they can find you on all social media platforms.
Yes, so I'm on Twitter at Dix Brianna, on Instagram Brianna Dix, and then you can find my articles and videos on D210.tv under the Cowboys tab.
Perfect. Definitely give her a follow, fam. Like I said, she keeps us informed. Y'all think I tweet fast? She's on it. Like, she's on it, getting that inside view. So I appreciate your work. Continue to climb. do big things with your career. And hopefully next season is going to end a lot better than it did this year. For everyone seeing me for the first time, J Tuck, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, JTuck151. CowboysFansOnly.com for your merch. And of course, Cowboys Fans Only YouTube channel. Comment, like, subscribe. Want to share big news with everyone, so I post this on Twitter. I am covering the Super Bowl. Yes, your boy has media credentials for the Super Bowl. So I was able to get one interview. I got Cam Akers, but I had technical issues. I tried to log in this morning. It was like site error and all sorts of stuff. So I was calling tech people and emailing back and forth, but I'm able to get information for the Super Bowl. I'll have some practice coverages, interviews, stuff like that. So even though we're not Bengals and Rams fans, it's still going to be fun because it's the last week of football. And then it gets dark after this, so we better enjoy it. So, I'm one of those bitter Cowboys fans, to be honest with you, Bree. Is like, I don't care. I'm going to wear my Cowboys jersey on Sunday. I'm probably going to complain, eat a little bit of food, go to sleep, and get ready for work on Monday. I don't, because like normally in Kansas City, right, it's been the past 3 years, it's Super Bowl party, Super Bowl party, Super Bowl party. Now it's kind of, But it's like, nah, I'm not gonna do no parties, man.
I'll eat like all the food. But for me, honestly, like I'm super excited for this matchup because the Bengals and Rams were the teams that I wanted in the Super Bowl. Like those were the teams that I wanted to see, that I was rooting for. So I was pumped.
Well, since I have you here, who's your winner? Who you going with?
Ooh, I'm gonna go with the Bengals.
Ooh,
I'm gonna go
underdog.
with Joey B. Yeah.
All right. So if the Bengals win, Bree's gonna come back and she's gonna do her gritty dance. I can't do it. I'm trying. I saw Scheffner, but Mac Jones pulled it off in the Pro Bowl, so now I kind of feel bad. Like I didn't even be able to pull that dance off.
I want it so bad for Bengals fans. Like, I mean, like, have you watched all of his videos?
Yeah. I know a lot of
just,
people
like, going nuts, and it just it makes my heart happy. And I'm like, I just want this so bad for them, and to see like what Joe Burrow came back from the injury last year, and I mean, for him to be potentially the first quarterback to ever win the Heisman, a national title, and then a Super Bowl, and to do it in 3 years, like,
see,
I just want to see it happen.
And
I think that
see, Bree has a bigger heart than me because I'm the opposite. I've been a hater. Like, I can't believe the Bengals are in the dang Super Bowl. Like, that should be. I'm like, I was literally sitting there like,
it was the Cowboys.
I was sitting there like, at least if it was the Chiefs, okay, I understand. I was like, man, the Bengals are about to go to the dang Super Bowl. And here I am, the first round exit. Like, this makes zero sense. Our quarterback came back from injury. Like, we got, like, why can't it be us? Why can't it be us? But maybe it'll be our turn. But I tell y'all this, if the Lions get to the Super Bowl before us, I'm done. I'm out.
Oh my,
quit.
Don't even.
I quit.
Don't even. So the last year they actually went was the year I was born.
Ah.
So that just, I've had a rough go of it.
It's been right. It's been rough. Well, hey, Bree, once again, thanks for coming on. Appreciate all the work. Everyone in the chat, I appreciate you guys for joining in. Like I said, stay tuned. We're going to be dropping more draft content this week, having more guests. So hit that notification bell. I want everyone to stay safe, stay blessed, stay encouraged,